This is a live look right now with the Artemis rocket on the launch pad. A lot of excitement building at Kennedy Space Center for tomorrow morning's scheduled launch. We want to go live now to WAY 31 News anchor Dan Schaefer. So Dan, you are there in Florida, have been now for a little while, getting updates on this closely watched launch. Dan?
That's a fact. And Brittany, in fact, we attended another briefing this morning, and word from NASA managers about this launch, quote, bottom line, we look really good. As you mentioned, we're about 14 and a half hours or so from the launch of the SLS Artemis 1, 7:33 Central Time. Behind me there is the countdown clock. That says T-minus 11 hours and 31 minutes. The difference there is the 14 hours, that's L minus, that's actually time to launch. This is T minus, which means this has holds built into it. So that countdown clock will stop every now and then, but eventually it all gets down to T minus 0. Let me tell you this, they are working no issues, they say, with the actual rocket itself. The SLS seems to be in really good shape. Weather, of course, is always the fly in the ointment. Some good news on that front coming out of that briefing today. Conditions for tomorrow morning's launch window have improved a bit. Forecasters now calling for an 80% chance of favorable weather. At the opening of the window, it dwindles a little bit to 60% closer to the end of that 2 hours they have to launch. That's when the onshore winds will kick in, and it's more likely to push some rain toward the Cape then. The showers and storms, though, boy, last couple of days have been frequent. The pattern is shifting, though, just in time, as I mentioned. Now, weather criteria is very strict for this launch. Weather Officer Melody Lovin says they'll be monitoring conditions using a variety of tools and resources right up to the minute of liftoff, including everything from sophisticated radar to old-school weather balloons.
But yes, we're also sending up balloons. We also have something called T-drip, and we also have the 915 megahertz radars that are sensing the low-level boundary movement of the winds. We have a NASA-supplied jet that we can fly out to any concerning clouds to see exactly where the cloud edges are in case we're wondering if they're violating or going to violate.
Now, as I mentioned, weather has been a big issue at the Cape here the last few days. Frequent thunderstorms Saturday produced lightning that struck the launch pad's lightning protection towers 5 times. We're told the system worked as designed and there was no damage to the rocket or the Orion spacecraft, so good news there. A lot has happened here at the Cape in the last 24 hours. Let me run it down for you. Orion, the space capsule at the top of the rocket, was powered up. The core stage with all the flight control software and computers, that was powered up. All the batteries on board are now at 100% charged. The launch pad will be cleared at about 8:30 tonight, and then the tanking of the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen fuel begins around midnight. It's getting real here. This test of the SLS, the first flight of the Artemis missions to return men to first the moon, hopefully, and then on to Mars is underway.
Well, Dan, it definitely feels like it's getting real exciting to watch all of this coverage. So you've lived in Florida, spend a lot of time there, know how the weather can change rapidly, and you've covered NASA. So hearing that 80% chance of liftoff from NASA has to be encouraging that this rocket will be able to blast off.
That is very encouraging, Brittany. The big concern always with a launch is lightning. That's the #1 concern, especially when they load the rocket with fuel. It's basically a bomb, and lightning and fuel don't mix very well, so they want to mitigate that. But there's also concerns about winds and how strong the winds are and what direction they're coming in. And you've got temperature criteria, even solar radiation criteria that they look at. So a lot goes in to making sure this liftoff is successful. This is the lightning capital of the country, right here in Central Florida. So that's the big concern. And good news for NASA is this pattern that I mentioned is shifting. So we're getting winds off the ocean right now. Hopefully by tomorrow morning, weather will be clear and we'll see those afternoon storms start to develop well inland away from the Cape and continue moving in. A little bad news, though, if for any reason this launch is scrubbed for weather or technical problems, the next available launch window opens on Friday. That window opens closer to noon, and if that is not available, Monday's launch window doesn't open till 5, and that opens the window, as it were, for more thunderstorm activity closer to the Cape. So we're all hoping it goes up tomorrow when the weather, as I mentioned, is at 80% favorable.